Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted and honored that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. We have two fantastic guests for you today. A little bit later on, you'll be meeting Julie Dinges. She'll be here to celebrate Search For The Scepter. But first, we are welcoming Heather Avis in. Heather is here to celebrate her beautiful picture book, Different Is a Great Thing to Be. Heather, welcome to the Reading with Your Kids podcast.
Thanks. Hi. I'm so happy to be here.
Heather, I'm really excited to have you on this show because I just love your picture book. I think it has a really important message. Please tell us a little bit about Different Is a Great Thing to Be.
Yes, so the book Different, A Great Thing to Be was inspired by my oldest daughter. Her name is Macy, and she has Down syndrome. And so she is a child who, when she walks into a space, presents as, quote, different. And I remember being a child, and even as an adult, feeling this negative feeling around that word. I didn't want to be different. It made me feel uncomfortable. It was a negative attachment. And I thought, you know what? My kid and all of my kids and everybody, it is our differences that are beautiful and incredible. And so why not shift the narrative around the term different and make it a positive thing and something that we celebrate? So it's a book that is with Macy as our guide, teaching us to notice, to embrace, and to celebrate the differences in ourselves and others.
Well, as somebody who has made a living as a professional magician and clown for over 30 years, I've been called different many times, and it's something that I learned to love and really embrace. So I love the message of your book. I think it's so important because the reality is we're all different.
Yeah. Everybody is different. And kids just experience it in a way that we have such opportunity as adults to step in there alongside them and let them feel that, we don't want to shove it down. No, don't talk about that. Don't point that out. Don't notice that in other people. But no, let's see it and celebrate it. It's such an opportunity. Kids are such little sponges and learners. And so there's depending on the age, but there's such an innocence within the noticing the different in other people, that creates an opportunity for pointing out how those differences are just so beautiful. And when we can see and celebrate the differences in everybody, it gives us a deeper understanding of our collective humanity.
Yeah.
And who doesn't need that?
Amen. You said something about the innocence of kids and when they notice a difference. When a kid notices something's different, it's not like, oh, she's different. It's, oh, she's different. Mm-hmm. It's a curiosity. And I certainly remember being young and noticing that people were different. Either they spoke a different language or a different race or had different abilities. I remember very clearly my mom saying to me, "Shh, quiet, don't say, don't pretend you don't see it." And I think that's where the whole different comes from. It's this fear of talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like we do as adults, right? We just kind of we just project things onto our children that are unnecessary. And I have so many stories. I can picture it one time being in line at a store called IKEA, and my daughter Macy was maybe 4, and she has a bit of a tongue thrust, so her tongue was sticking out. And the girl behind her said to her mom, "What's wrong with her?" Loud enough for all of us to hear, obvious. And my instinct right away was like, "Oh, honey, let's talk about it." This is Mason. She has Down syndrome. This is what might make her different. But the mom did what I think most parents do, which is shh, shh, and pulled her away and got in another line. Mm-hmm. And I thought, not only did that communicate to my daughter, Mason, and myself that there's something wrong with her, which there's not. It communicated to this little girl that there's something wrong and shameful about wondering, right? And we cannot teach our children that it's shameful to wonder, because that's what makes us grow and become better humans, is this ability to wonder. So it really is this mission that has been driven by my kids to be able to say, yes, they are different. And that is amazing. You know, and you are different, and that's incredible. And with the hopes that as they grow up and get older and enter the awkward phases of junior high and become adults, that then they can see the person who maybe goes to a different church or dresses differently or acts differently or is a different skin color. And the go-to is like, they're different. This is great. I'm not going to be afraid.
Yeah. Hey, we talked about, the fact that you would have loved to have had a chance to explain to that little girl about your daughter and about what Down syndrome is. And I have a feeling that even now in the year 2021, there are a lot of adults who've heard the term Down syndrome before, and they're able to see someone that's, that person probably has Down syndrome, but they don't know much more about it. So what would you have told that little girl and that little girl's mom about Down syndrome?
Yeah, so Down syndrome is simply an extra chromosome. It's a chromosomal difference, and every human is made up of chromosomes. What makes us up. The majority of people have 46 chromosomes, 2 copies, 23 chromosomes, 2 copies each. People with Down syndrome have a third copy of the 21st chromosome. That is the difference. And with that extra copy comes some similarities among people with Down syndrome. So it often means that there's some facial features that are similar, like a flatter bridge on the nose, an almond-shaped eye. Usually people with Down syndrome are going to be a little bit shorter, smaller stature. Oftentimes people with Down syndrome have low muscle tone, and so that can lead to what often people with Down syndrome speak differently, because your tongue, your lips, your jaw, your diaphragm, it's all muscles. So if there's low tone there, then it's going to create a difference in speech. And there's oftentimes an intellectual disability attached to Down syndrome, although not always. So those are just kind of the real quick basics, and I think that it's also important to note, and I would tell, depending on how much time I have to share with a mother and a child, that everyone with Down syndrome is also a unique individual. And they have a syndrome that puts them in a category with others, but they're also, like you, a unique individual with a full range of emotions. And just like you, they want to be known, and they want to know that they have value and worth. They want relationship, just like anybody else. And so I think that's where I would start, depending on how much time I have to talk to the mom in line.
Well, I think that last sentence is the most important one, that folks with Down syndrome, folks with any kind of challenge, they're human beings, and they're human beings who can be wonderful friends. And I think that's probably the most important lesson that we can share with our kids is, and not only about folks with Down syndrome or intellectual challenges or any kind of challenge. Everybody, we're all different, and we all have the potential to be great friends.
Yeah. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with wanting to create friendships and be around people that you share similarities with, right? That's our knee-jerk human reaction to want to do and do that. But what's awesome about creating relationships or pursuing relationships with people who are different than you, first of all, you're going to find some kind of commonality. You're just going to find a connection and something that you're going to have in common that you can build a relationship on. But also, it offers these opportunities for learning and growth and understanding that really are what our world needs to be more loving and inclusive in all regards. And so I think it's really important. And what in the book, Different, A Great Thing to Be, Macy's this guide who is showing up in the world just as she is into spaces where she's expected to be somebody else. And she's feeling sad at rejection like anybody would. But what she does is invite people to embrace the difference in themselves. And when you allow people who are different than you to when you allow yourself, I should say, to enter into relationships with people who are different than you, when you encourage your children to enter into relationships with people who are different than them, then it gives them all the opportunity that I think all of us are desiring to be our true, authentic self. Because like you said, we all are different. And so if we can stop trying to fit into those molds and those categories, the pressure that society tells us you need to be more like fill in the blank to be successful or whatever it is. If we allow ourselves to be authentically who we are in our core and we teach our kids to do the same, then we're just going to build this bridge that like gaps the divide between all the different people, because there is that shared humanity of, oh, you are human. I am human. That's enough right there.
Yep. Yep. So important to help our kids see the humanity in each and every one of us. I was sharing with Heather before we began recording, or in between attempts to begin recording, that I had made a disabilities awareness video back in 1989 and was working with kids with severe developmental disabilities. And it was one of those kids. And I met this group of kids by accident and was kind of taken aback by their level of disability and challenge, and was kind of frightened of them initially. And that disturbed me, that I would be frightened of another human being, especially kids. And so I made it my mission to get to know these kids and to become friends with them and eventually work with them and help them develop friendships. And it's because of that and because of the relationship I had with one of those kids in particular, Jennifer, that I met my beautiful wife. She was instrumental in meeting this person who has been my wife for the past 30 years. And so without that relationship, I don't know where I would be right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting you bring that up because the unknown is scary. What we don't know is scary until you know it. And then it's not scary anymore. Right. And that's the same with people with disabilities. I find as a child, and I find with my daughter, people are nervous about her and around her because they don't know anyone with Down syndrome. And then once they do, it's not scary anymore. It's not that the person or the group of people are what's scary. It's the unknown that's scary. And we have an opportunity to make the unknown known through relationships, through books, through shows, through what we expose ourselves to. And that's powerful. And that's a powerful tool to teach our kids, like it's not this person or this group that's scary. It's that you don't know. But guess what? You have the power to know by saying, hi, what's your name? And asking questions and creating a relationship. And then it's known, and then it's not scary anymore.
Yeah. I'm imagining that it is, we said early on, picture books can be great teachers of kids, but also great teachers of adults. And I'm imagining a family snuggled up on the couch, reading different is a great thing to be together, and a light bulb going off in the minds of the grown-ups reading the books, thinking to themselves, I really need to change the way I look at people who are different.
I mean, I hope so. I do with this book. And I have just found as a parent how often I learn these important lessons from my kids as I parent them that I wish I would have learned as a child. No fault to my own parents. It's just the world is growing and evolving and we're all always changing. And so that's my hope. I know there's an adult out there because I'm that adult that often questions the value of myself because I'm different, because I don't fit a certain mold, and I have this incredible teacher who happens to be my children, these incredible teachers who happen to be my children, who are helping me grow. I'm 39 years old and I'm still learning these lessons. So I hope so. I hope that parents read this book and see the difference in themselves that maybe they've always known since they have a memory that they've always rejected and embrace it. That would be beautiful.
It would be. I have to ask you something. I don't remember how long ago. I don't know if it was a few years or more than a few years, but there was a time in recent history when a country, I'm not sure the country, but it was a Scandinavian country, was celebrating the fact that we don't have Down syndrome kids here anymore. We solved that problem as if it was a problem. I don't know if you were aware of that, and if you were, what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think it was maybe in 2017 or so, there was an article that came out that Iceland had eradicated Down syndrome. Last year in, I think, December 2020, The Atlantic put out an article about something similar happening in Denmark. And so it was called The Last Children of Down Syndrome. I mean, I have a lot of feelings around that, a lot of initial reactions. I feel I get real defensive because these are my kids, you know, these are my kids. And to say that you are working towards eradicating a kid like mine, it just screams that you don't see their value and worth. And that is unacceptable. That is unacceptable. And then I feel so burdened and sad for that society because there has got to, I wonder how many people are so trapped in this idea of perfectionism, or whatever you want to call it, that I think here in the West, we fall victim to all the time, like a need to prove yourself, a need to prove your worth, a need to prove your enoughness. I call it in my home, and how stifling that is to an individual, but how stifling that must be to a whole society. Right. And so I just feel burdened for them. I feel like, this is something that the root of it is not Down syndrome disability. It's something much deeper and much darker that they're going to have to work out, you know, because the truth is, again, that unknown. I talk to parents all the time, who get a new diagnosis for Down syndrome, to parents and to grandparents and to siblings. I talk to educators who are getting a student for the first time ever in their career who has Down syndrome. And it is that fear of the unknown. And so to separate, you're not afraid of a person with Down syndrome. You're afraid of what you don't know. And you're going to feel the feelings you feel. Everyone has to go through their own process, like especially new parents with a diagnosis. But almost everybody, I would say like 99.9% of the families who I talk to who have had a chance to get to what I call the other side, they are so grateful to have a loved one with Down syndrome. So that speaks volumes, you know, like, yeah, it's hard. It's freaking hard, but raising kids is so hard. Sure. And what makes having a child with Down syndrome difficult is a world that questions their worth. If the world was like arms wide open, you are amazing as you are. We want to come alongside you and learn from you and learn with you. I mean, it'd be easy breezy, but no, we're stepping into school systems that are saying, no, your child can't be in this classroom. We're interacting with kids who don't know what to do because they've never been around someone with Down syndrome, going to churches that don't have a space. You know what I mean? So I'm so grateful to live in a place where people are having kids with Down syndrome. You know, I'm so grateful to be part of the community, and I'm so thankful to get to raise kids with Down syndrome because to bring it full circle to the book, the differences that they exhibit that make up who they are has opened up a whole world to me that has given me such opportunities to see the innate value and worth in all humans, including myself. And I would have missed it. I would have missed it otherwise. It is a grand opportunity to have a relationship with a person with Down syndrome or other disabilities. It is a grand opportunity, and I hope that everyone gets that.
Yeah. A few years back, my wife, who's been a special needs teacher for 33 years, and she was a classroom, the teacher who, if there was someone who didn't fit into whatever box a certain classroom was, they would always go to my wife and go, you need to help us. And a few years back, they came to her with a child with Down syndrome, and my wife had never worked with a child with Down syndrome. And initially she's like, I'm not sure how I can best serve this child, and came to me because she knew that I had worked with kids. And I said, you'll be fine. You figure it out. And she fell in love with this kid. The entire school fell in love with this kid. He was the most popular kid in the school. He had just such an amazing personality. And, you know, he had trouble doing things, but every kid in kindergarten and first and second grade has difficulty doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hope that everybody out there has a chance to form a friendship with someone with Down syndrome, with somebody who is different from you. It makes the life better.
Yeah.
And for anybody out there that may be thinking, well, but Finland, Denmark, maybe they have a thing because, it's, Heather said it's hard, so maybe parents don't need. Well, what's the next thing? If they're eradicate, they decided that people with Down syndrome, let's eradicate this. What's next? Autism?
What's next? Right.
Blue eyes?
Yep.
Short old men with bald heads?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The article in The Atlantic, I would really highly recommend people go read it. Again, it's the December 2020 issue. You can find it online, but it really goes deeper into I don't know the scientific term for it, but basically in utero decisions, right? And that's true. What's next? If we're going to fail to see the humanity and the worth in every person as they are, right? If we're going to fail to do that, if we're going to fail to see the humanity and worth in people with Down syndrome and we're going to decide that they're not worthy of life, then what? Right? Yeah, exactly like you're saying. So then what? If you don't have blue eyes, you don't get to live. And that seems extreme, but it's a slippery slope. That kind of idea and that kind of thinking leads in that direction, And so, it's overwhelming.
Yeah. Hey, while we're here, I know that you're also the host of the Lucky Few podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that podcast?
Yes. So the organization, it's a nonprofit my husband and I run called The Lucky Few. And it's the idea that few of us have a loved one with Down syndrome. And those of us who do are very lucky. And I've actually written a couple of adult books. My first is a memoir called The Lucky Few. And so the podcast is by the same name. And I have two co-hosts and they're women and we're three moms raising our kids and wanting to shift the narrative around Down syndrome, around the idea of Down syndrome and shout the worth of people with Down syndrome. So we talk about our experiences as moms. We have guests on all the time, other parents. We have experts on whatever's happening in the news and the media. We hit up on that. So it's just a place where we hope that other people connected to Down syndrome somehow, or those who aren't even, come and sit across the table from us and hang out.
Yeah. And what a beautiful thing, going back to your book, Different is a Great Thing to Be, to help our kids learn to value themselves by learning to value people who are different than us.
Yeah. That's the hope.
Yeah. Beautiful. Hey, Heather, I know people are going to want to know where they can find out more about Different is a Great Thing to Be. It's just out today, and learn more about you and your podcast and all of your books.
Yes, so you can go to heatheravis.com. On social media, we are at The Lucky Few Official, and you can keep up on all the things going on in our world in those two places.
We've had a great time speaking with the author of Different is a Great Thing to Be, Heather Avis. Heather, thanks so much for being on the Reading with Your Kids podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
So happy that Heather was able to be with us today. Please be sure to check out Different is a Great Thing to Be, and also check out the Lucky Few podcast. Right now, I'm really excited to welcome the author of Search for the Scepter, Julie Dinges. Hey, Julie, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on your show, Jed.
I'm excited to have you on the show. Always looking to speak to great books and to find out how they can transform our families. Tell us all about Search for the Scepter, please.
Okay, so the Search for the Scepter was an idea that I got basically after reading and watching a lot of fantasy movies or books to my two girls. They love anything princesses, anything that is magical, mythical. We are big Harry Potter fans in this house, both the books and the movies. And I wanted to write a book for them that was about them, based on them. There's two princesses in the Search for the Scepter. The main characters are Rosalee and Scarlet, and they're based off of my two daughters, Audrey and Violet. And I wanted to incorporate all of the magical creatures that they love. And I wrote it just for them and read it to them one day, and they really liked it. And I thought, maybe I could get this published. But it's a book about two princesses that go on a quest to find their father's stolen scepter. A thief had broken into the castle, stole the scepter, and they go through all of these magical realms, and they find friends who help them along the way to find their stolen scepter and return it to the kingdom. And it's a fun story filled with amazing illustrations done by Nazar Horkivsky, my illustrator. And it's fun for the kids. There's a map at the end that they can kind of go through a maze and see all of the places that the girls went on their quest.
Awesome.
Yeah.
First off, I have to take my hats off and give you a pat in the back for acknowledging your illustrator. It's really important to acknowledge the folks who help us along our way in our journey. And illustrations are such an important part of picture books. They really tell and enhance the story. When I think of fantasy, and it's probably because I'm like almost 100 years old, I'm still stuck in a lot of the stereotypes. And so when I think of fantasy, I'm thinking of, these are books that guys would like to read and love. And I know that girls can love fantasy too, and boys can love books that are quote unquote typically thought of as girls' books. But this is something that you chose to write for your daughters. Are your daughters unique, or are we just not acknowledging the fact that lots of girls love fantasy?
Well, I grew up loving science fiction. I'm a huge Star Wars, Star Trek fan. I love anything space related. And magical, mythical related too. So I don't know if they got the inspiration from myself. My husband's also a big science fiction fan. And they just grew up always loving that realm, the fantasy realm. And you're right, though. There's a lot of leading characters in books and movies with male figures. So I think it's really cool that I have two female characters. They're younger. They're inspired to save the scepter and bring it home. And they go through this journey and resolve the conflict in the book, which is really good for young girls and boys to read for being inspired and being brave and kind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that we're able to see two female characters who aren't sitting back waiting to be rescued. They're actually doing the rescuing.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
They go off on their own. They sneak out of the castle. Their parents don't know. And they do this all by themselves with the help of the magical creatures kind of pointing them in the right direction. But they do it all on their own. And it's fun to watch them go on their journey.
Yeah. I'm really curious as to your daughter's reactions, to the book. What was it like for them to see themselves portrayed in such heroic ways in the pages of a book?
They loved it. They were so involved in this, which was really fun for me. So Rosalee is based off of my oldest daughter, Audrey. And Audrey has dark brown curly hair, and so does Rosalee. And so Audrey wanted to pick out, throughout most of the story, they were in their pajamas because they woke up and the thief had broken in the early morning hours. So they go and they wanted to pick out their pajama colors. And at the end, when they are successful, they wanted to pick out another color for an outfit. My youngest daughter, Violet, she has straight red hair. And so that's why I named her Scarlet for her hair color. And so they know that these little tips are in the book that are referring to them, and they just love it. They had so much fun. They had a lot of suggestions about which characters they wanted to see. They have a lot of suggestions about many other books they want me to write with a lot of different characters, like flying cats and things like that. So it's been enjoyable for our whole family to be a part of. When I wrote the book, we all sat down together and read it. When we were going through the illustrators, we all sat down together and we voted on who we thought would be the best fit for the book. When I got my first illustrations back from Nazar, we had so much fun looking at those together as a family and seeing what fun things he included, because he had a lot of great ideas. So it's been enjoyable for all of us.
That's really cool. Have your daughters gone out and kind of bragged about it to their friends? They go, look at us, we're in a book.
Yeah, I actually, I didn't know this. Violet's in kindergarten, and her kindergarten teacher told me recently that Violet reads, I donated a copy of the book to her teacher. She reads the book during story time every single day. And she recently did something with a project she was doing and said her favorite book was The Search for the Scepter. So it's so neat to see both girls, like Audrey will sit down and just start reading it, or they'll pick it out for the bedtime story and want me to read it. And they talk about it with their friends, and they love being a part of Zoom calls if they're around and available. Or recently I went to a park and read, and Violet loved coming with me, and she was almost like a teacher with the kids, like, raise your hand if unicorns are your favorite animal. Which color unicorn do you like best? And so that was really fun for her to get involved.
Yeah, neat. Now, you mentioned that there are a bunch of magical animals in The Search for the Scepter. Do you have a favorite?
Ooh, that's a good question. I like them all too. There are a lot of my favorites. As a kid, I always pretended when I was in the pool to be a mermaid. So I do love mermaids. Mermaids are in the book. And it was really cool how Nazar made the girls able to breathe underwater to visit the mermaids. And so I would say out of all of them, they're all my favorite, but probably the mermaids.
The mermaids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not every parent can sit down. Well, theoretically, every parent can sit down and write a book about their kids. Not every parent has the desire or the time or the writing ability. But every parent has the ability to sit down and help their kids find a favorite character, a character that they can kind of look to. Were you conscious of that you were creating a role model for your daughters and writing about them? You were creating a role model and giving them a look at themselves in difficult situations and seeing themselves overcome different obstacles?
I think at the beginning I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. I was just writing a fun story for our family of the two princesses based on them going on a quest. And then the more that I got into the content, and then as it was being edited and as I saw the illustrations, I realized that the character traits of both of the princesses are based off of the girls. Subconsciously, I did that. And then I realized that I did like a hero book on girls, on my two daughters. And they were brave and kind, just like Audrey and Violet are. So the end product was not what I initially started out to do, but it was just a beautiful story, and I loved how it turned out.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that we can remember as parents as we're going out and selecting books, and hopefully we can give our kids a chance to be part of that process. But as we're selecting books and as we're suggesting to our families who want to buy books for our family library, we can kind of let our families know and be aware that, hey, my kids are really kind, and I want to celebrate that, and I really want them to, to grow that trait. So let's talk and let's introduce my kids to characters that are kind, that are brave, that can stand up to all these different challenges and obstacles in their life.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun to get books like that inspire kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you taken the time to think and realize that, obviously you've inspired your daughters, but as the book is going out there, you're actually giving parents a tool that can help them inspire their daughters and sons?
Mm-hmm. The most rewarding thing that I have received as an author has been messages or phone calls or emails that said, my daughter did a book report on your book today, or my daughter sat down and wrote all about magical creatures and they did their own quest. One of my friend's daughters sent me a video, and she's not old enough to write, but she had pictures, and she wrote her book in illustrations about two princesses going on a quest. And just hearing those stories about how these kids are inspired to write or to draw is just so inspiring to me. You know, you don't realize that when you're writing a book, and once it gets out there and you hear that, I'm in awe of it. It's very cool.
Yeah. Well, I know that your daughters are anxious for you to write more stories, and they have all sorts of ideas, but they don't have to sit down at the keyboard and bang it out and then work with a publisher and work with an illustrator and an editor. It's a lot of work to create a children's book. Now that your first one is out there, have you caught the writing bug? Will we be seeing more books coming from Julie Dinges?
I would love to. It's been a lifelong dream of mine to write a book. I remember typing on a typewriter as a child, writing a book about a girl who got an elephant as a pet. And so I have started many stories along my life, and it was always a goal of mine to write and publish a book. So I would love to write more. I do still write when inspiration hits. And so maybe you'll see some more. I did set the Search for the Scepter up to be a potential series about the two princesses going on additional quests. So it's a possibility.
Yeah. Can you share one or two of the ideas that your daughter has planted in your mind?
They want me to incorporate more people that we know. So hidden inside the Search for the Scepter are little trinkets from our family. So our two dogs who have passed away since I wrote the book are actually in the Search for the Scepter. Nizar included them. And he also included my brother's dog, which was the family dog growing up as well. So they both want to see more of that, more people like their cousins in the book. They want the girls to go on another quest to save the kingdom. They have lots of ideas about jewels and, a crown and things like that. So they are always giving me magical creature ideas. Some of them I've never even heard of. We would have to make it up, which is funny. They have lots of good suggestions. They're little, so their imaginations are huge. Yeah,
absolutely. Hey, tell everybody, Julie, where they can go to find out more about Search for the Scepter and find out more about you.
Sure. So I have a website. It's juliedinges.com. And you can go there and find out more about me. You can order the book. I personalize them and send you a bookmark. And you can connect with me on Facebook and Instagram. My Facebook is at juliedinges-author. And my Instagram is julie_dinges_author. I also have a YouTube channel. You can search for Julie Dinges Author on there. There's a couple fun videos on there, including the book trailer, if people want to see a preview of the book.
Cool. Well, we've had a great time speaking to the author of the beautiful picture book, Search for the Scepter. And our guest has been Julie Dinges. Hey, Julie, thanks for spending time with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be recording artist JJ Heller. JJ will be here to celebrate A Hand to Hold. That's the next episode of the podcast. Hey, I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guest, Heather Avis. Be sure to check out Different is a Great Thing to Be, and check out her podcast, too, The Lucky Few. I also want to thank Julie Dinges. Please be sure to check out Search for the Scepter. I want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, Justina Thompson, Helen Frazier. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank Augie the doggy for having my back here in the studio. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.